Welcome to the Consulus Global Circle. The Consulus Global Circle is a bi-monthly online thought leadership and knowledge-sharing platform commissioned collaboratively by the Consulus Global Network to share insight and discuss some of the global challenges we face today. It features global survey insights, industry and subject matter experts within the network, and external partners and influential leaders. We broadcast our global circle so that you can join us in the conversation on these issues and to learn more about some of the solutions that the experts and leaders in their respective fields have thought about to meet these challenges of today and the future. We invite you to join us today on our special one-hour program on leadership in the fast-changing world we currently live in. I am Joanna Maria Najjar, a consulate from Lebanon living in Greece, and today it is my pleasure to be your host for this special Global Circle edition on leadership. With me, I have Carlos Javier, the National Director for Consulus Brazil, who will be my co-host for today's program.
Good to be here with you, Johanna, and a warm welcome to all of you join us on Facebook. Today's program features the Global Chairman of Consulus, Jem Funk, to share about a new method of leadership we call the hero model. We also have special appearances by 4 leaders from around the world on their personal experiences on the 4 aspects of the hero model. A final key highlight is a panel interview session with Jem Funk and Sarah Johnson, the Director of Executive Education at ONeil School, who will share more about their experience on a webinar that they conducted together last month and their perspective on leadership today.
Yes, we have installed for you a very dynamic program that we hope will be useful to you as you venture out as leaders of today. Now, to get us started, let us begin by watching this video on the impact of COVID-19 on leadership.
This pandemic has changed our world in more ways than one. For the first time in human history, we live an interconnected experience of pain, confusion, and loss all at once. The world has suffered such a global pandemic before, but because of technology, we are able to experience it all at once as the cases rise. As we speak, millions of messages, images are being exchanged. Some are comforting, others less so. One thing is clear: people need leadership and direction. The call for change is getting louder. Which is why the World Economic Forum has called this the Great Reset. We see this sense of a reset in our work for governments, companies, and non-profit institutions. COVID-19 has unleashed a great period of soul-searching about purpose and meaning. But this is also the most complex of times. All at once, the problems of inequality, injustice, healthcare, and our planet have converged to create a mother of all storms that threaten our ability to operate or coexist with one another. In our global consultations with organizations of all sizes, from the largest to the smallest, it is clear that the greatest struggle is how to find a way to pivot their organizations to meet this challenge with new solutions. This is not the time for half measures, mere words of hope, but heroic persons of convictions who will lead their teams with courage and concrete solutions. In a world overcome by fear, what my colleagues and I have learned is that in moments of crisis, being able to communicate well as a leader matters in calming hearts and steering everyone towards common action.
We think that COVID-19 has definitely been a call for great reflection and redefinition on what leadership really means and looks like. But more importantly, we wanted to know what people and leaders thought about this. So we sent out a survey to 200 leaders globally. Now, let us look at the results of that survey.
We asked 200 leaders around the world what they thought about leadership in light of COVID-19. 79% thought that COVID-19 has brought about a need to rethink the principles of leadership, but 51% think they're not sufficiently prepared to meet the complex challenges we see today. 79% think that they have the vision to transcend today's challenges and uncertainties and to create the path to the future for themselves and others. And 86% say they're prepared to be the leader others trust to rebuoy their organization as it transitions from the effects of COVID-19. We also asked them about the top skills that leaders today need to possess, and these are the top 5 skills mentioned: emotional intelligence, adaptability, creativity, people management, judgment, and decision-making. What we see is that leaders today are able to envision a better future and are ready to take the leap, but possibly lack the confidence in their leadership skills to help them navigate the challenges ahead.
Firstly, I would like to thank all the participants who took our leadership survey. It's interesting to see that only 51% think they are sufficiently prepared to meet the increasingly complex challenge we see today. I wonder, what can leaders do to better prepare themselves for the challenges ahead?
That's a tough one. I think, as reflected in the survey, not just having the right expertise, but also have the right skill sets like emotional intelligence and adaptability is crucial to leadership today.
Yes, I completely agree. Carlos, would you like to introduce our speaker for today?
I would love to. As part of a partnership program initiative with the ONeil School of Public and Environmental Affairs Executive Education at the Indiana University in the United States, Jim Funk, the global chairman of Consulus and the global head of leadership transformation, gave a talk on the hero model during a webinar to a group of over 100 leaders from around the world. Jim is also a faculty member at the ONeil School as part of their executive programs. Now, I would like to invite Jim to share his talk with us for our global circle on leadership development. Jim, the stage is yours.
Well, we do need a different type of leadership now and in the future because of the more complex world that we live in, and especially in this time of crisis of COVID-19 and other crises around the world. We need leaders who can pivot, who can adjust, adapt quickly, and lead transformational change. Today's leaders must be integrated and holistic, be able to see the big picture, bring people together, and be able to guide, inspire, and show the way. We're calling this new type of leadership and its competencies and characteristics holistic leadership. What do we mean by this? Holistic leaders recognize that people, as well as leaders, are multifaceted by nature. These leaders know how to integrate their character and values into their leadership. And they understand that they bring their whole selves, body, mind, and spirit, to their leadership role. Recognizing this fact changes the way they lead, how their teams experience their leadership, and perhaps most notably, how they drive meaningful outcomes with purpose, even in times of great crisis and disruption. Well, most leadership models are all about doing things, crafting a vision, communicating, directing, achieving outcomes. Ways that the holistic leadership model sets leaders apart from those who are not prepared for the future is that it's not just about doing, it's about being. It's about who the leader is as a person, how he or she shows up. It's about how and why people are motivated to follow this leader, to be engaged in the vision, and to trust that what they are being led to is good. The holistic leader is aware of and considers the conditions in the world around them, which will impact people and work. And most of all, the holistic leader considers that workers are human beings who also bring their whole selves to work, not just their skills and abilities. and that they will be personally impacted by the decisions that the leader makes. In other words, holistic leaders are person-centered. So we have built these notions into a new leadership competency model for the future that we call HERO, because the acronym HERO stands for the 4 competency categories of the holistic leader. In this model, you can see elements of both doing and being, and very person-centered in approach. First, the H, heart and spirit, is about one's personal virtues, values, and character strengths. It informs their decisions and the actions that the leader undertakes. The E, embracive thinking, is about the mental capacity and capability to learn, think creatively, embrace diversity of thought, and apply one's knowledge in the decisions the leader makes. The R, relational dynamics, is about one's physical presence, habits, and emotions. It's about how the leader relates to others, how aware he or she is of self and others. And finally, operations leadership, the O, is what all leaders need to deliver outcomes. So it's about the functional leadership capabilities of creating a vision, directing followership, planning, directing, achieving results. It's also important to make the point here that hero does not mean hero like on a pedestal or above others. In fact, this hero is a servant, requiring heroic and courageous humility. One of the most overt ways we can spot a holistic leader is in the relational dynamics competency category. Since this is about presence, let's imagine for a moment a leader you know or may have worked for. How did that leader make you feel when you were in his presence or her presence? How did you feel about being called to his or her office? Did that leader inspire you to do your best work or put you under constant fear? That leader's presence can indicate who that leader is as a person, in addition to what he or she does.
Thank you very much, Jim, for the talk on the hero model. As part of this webinar, we also interviewed 4 leaders on these 4 aspects on the hero model. Let's hear what they have to share.
Mr. Capone has served for most of his career as a healthcare executive for Ascension Health, the largest Catholic health system in the U.S. His senior executive roles have included, among others, President and CEO of St. Vincent's Hospital in Birmingham, Alabama, Ministry Market Leader for Ascension Health in Indiana and Wisconsin, and Senior Vice President of Ascension Health. He has held several healthcare and higher education board chair roles and is currently the board chair for Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Well, I've had the advantage to be educated by the Jesuits. And when I went to Xavier University, I had intended to play basketball. And well, that didn't happen. And so I had to focus on my academics. And part of our curriculum involved both philosophy and theology. And I got very interested in Ignatian spirituality and the writings of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. And I really believe those writings and values that were expressed have really become part of who I am and my leadership style. And in particular, I like to think first and foremost, seeing God in all things. And I can tell you, sometimes in my management career, particularly working in the healthcare field, it was hard to see that. And you know, you have to remind yourself is that we're all made in the image of God, and that everybody is special, and we need to appreciate that in each individual one of us. The second part of Ignatian spirituality for me was men and women for others. When I was going to Xavier, it was all guys, so it was just men for others, but now it's men and women for others. And it probably always was that way. But in Men and Women for Others, it really gets to the core of servant leadership, and that we really have to serve one another. And it's more about doing something together than it is the individual gratification or recognition that you might receive for getting the project done.
Next, I would like to introduce you to Ms. Janet Ang. Ms. Ang is a retired IBM Vice President and the former Managing Director of IBM Singapore. A veteran in the tech industry who has lived and worked in Japan and China for over a decade, she has a diverse background, having managed IBM services in Greater China, IBM industry solutions across Asia Pacific, and Lenovo desktop operations globally. She has also served on or chaired a number of boards and foundations. Here is Ms. Janet Ang.
Inclusion and diversity are two sides of the same coin. Inclusion of all the diverse voices that you can embrace, including all the different stakeholders, including your clients, everyone in society, all your stakeholders that have got to be part of your, in a way, ecosystem. So businesses don't exist for themselves, all right? It is really for bringing value to the community they serve, or bringing products and services, and then hopefully it is at a very fair and equitable, relationship amongst all the different stakeholders. While I was growing up, it was never even a topic in my head. It was because in our classes, we had everybody. I learned one of my early things is to help my classmate, who's a real great athlete, but poor in her studies. And the class teacher asked us, if you all don't help Ellen to get her homework done, then she is not representing the class in the sports event. I volunteered to helping her with her homework so that she can go and represent us and win in the games, right? So I guess from a diversity perspective and an embracing inclusion, in many ways I'm there. Then sometimes if you want to see those uglier parts of, to each their own, I'm not going to lose my soul to gain the world, all right? So if I don't quite like what I see, I will go and engage and try to bring the person across, and also be prepared to listen, all right? And especially if they are not of the same upbringing, they are not of the same gender, they are not of the same culture, they are not of the same nationality, cannot make those assumptions. Sure, sometimes we might miss, so they might not agree with me, but they will remember.
James P. Moore serves as the founder, president, and CEO of the Washington Institute for Business, Government, and Society, headquartered in Washington, D.C. He served as U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Trade Development, and his work on international trade negotiations led to the creation of the World Trade Organization. He has also negotiated trade and economic agreements for the U.S. with Japan, China, Brazil, South Korea, and other countries. He has also served on a number of boards. Here is Mr. Jim Moore.
First of all, let me just say how delighted I am to be with you, Lawrence. I'm a great admirer of the work that Consulus is doing and continues to do. I think it's terribly important. The Washington Institute really came into existence, the Washington Institute for Business, Government, and Society, I might add, because of the lack of leadership in trying to bring those three segments together. I have found that leadership is so critically important by virtue of trying to listen, to be able to try to be empathetic to what others want, what others are experiencing, not necessarily sympathy, but certainly empathy. And I don't think that there's been any greater example than what's been happening to the coronavirus. Here in the United States, we have had 50 governors governors of our territories and the mayor of the District of Columbia that have been responsible for showing their leadership skills. And in some instances, they have done very well. In other instances, they haven't. And I will bet that there are more governors who are known by certain people here in the United States than ever before, simply because they've been on television trying to show their leadership qualities. And I think the ones that have failed ultimately have done so because they weren't empathetic. They didn't listen to the science, for example, and they would just begin to move immediately in making certain political decisions. I think we've learned a great deal about leadership through this coronavirus, certainly here in the United States and around the world. We've seen leaders of entire countries that did not take the time to be empathetic, to listen very carefully. And so bringing together business, government, and society and listening to all the segments of the world as we know it today, I think is critically important in taking on leadership and being able to really be an effective steward of the people.
Dr. Lewis is the Department Director of Corporate Operations for the Naval Service Warfare Center, Crane Division, of the U.S. Naval Sea Systems Command. Angie and her staff are responsible for ensuring a mission-ready environment for the command's operations. She is a member of several professional engineering associations and is a lifetime member and past president of the Hoosier Hills chapter of Federally Employed Women. She also serves in other volunteer board positions. Here is Dr. Lewis.
As a leader within a naval research laboratory, one of the things that we use to really draw people into the mission and to get buy-in and engagement out of the employees is that reminder of being a part of something that is much larger and greater. And I think within the public service arena that we tend to rely on that greater good as a part of the real draw to being an employee. And so from a leadership perspective, we really trade on the impact of our mission on, in our case, national defense. And one of the things that we've found as we've pivoted through this current environment is in a remote type workplace, we're starting to learn more about people as individuals. And authenticity is very important for leaders. And we found that once you make yourself known in a more authentic way, which happens in a virtual environment when you're working out of your home, and you also get to know your employees on a different level when you see the things that they're doing within their homes to remain engaged and productive, then the level of trust seems to increase, and people really become, less guarded with one another and see one another as individuals and more as equals. And so that's been one of the unintended consequences, I think, that we've found in going to a remote environment is really just that ability to learn more about our people and for them to know more about us. And what I've tried to do personally is just spend time talking about the great amount of appreciation, just the how impressed I've been with what we've been able to maintain, and then provide some assurances that we will work to maintain levels of work-life balance that the employees need and want as we come out of this environment. And I can even remember having someone ask me in the past, well, how do you let people know that you care about them? And, I work in a highly scientific environment with a lot of scientists, engineers, technicians, and it just kind of surprised me when I got that question before. And I said, well, the best way for people to feel like you care about them is for you to care about them. And I think that as we've all learned to adapt and operate and remain productive through this health pandemic that's facing our country, that we've learned how to relate and connect with people in a way that we hadn't done before.
We hope that Jim's talk on the hero leadership model, as well as the leader interviews, has given you a new perspective and framework to think about as you lead your people through these uncertain times. Now, I would like to pass the time to Stanislav Lenk, the Regional Director for Consulus Europe, who will be facilitating the panel interview session today. Over to you, Stanislav.
Thank you, Joanna. First, I would like to give a broader introduction to our partner for the Leadership Program initiative mentioned earlier. The ONeil School of Public and Environmental Affairs Executive Education at Indiana University is the #1 ranked school of public affairs in the US and has consistently been ranked in the top 10 of the academic ranking for world universities. In addition to their executive education programs, the ONeil School offers programs in public affairs and public administration to graduate and undergraduate students on multiple campuses. The school has more than 35,000 alumni living and working in the US and around the world. Consulus, together with the ONeil School, conducted a webinar titled Pivot with Courage, which goal was to give leaders a perspective on how the world has changed and what that means to them and others around the world. It triggered the question of the existential need for better leaders to meet the complex challenges of our time and outlined the competencies that leaders today need to build to pivot with courage and lead with confidence. I would like now to invite Jim Funk and Sarah Johnson, Director of Executive Education at the ONeil School, to join me for this panel session and share their experience on this webinar and their thoughts on leadership today. Hello and welcome, Jim and Sarah. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Stanos, for having us. We appreciate being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Jim, could you tell us a little more about what made you decide to partner with IUPUI to produce this webinar program? And when do you think there is a need right now for leaders to pivot with courage?
Yes, sure. Well, first of all, I know Indiana University very well because many years ago I did receive my master's degree from the IUPUI campus. And more recently, I'm on the faculty of the ONeil School, in addition to my roles with Consulus in leadership and the global chairman. And so I'm a member of really both of these high quality organizations. And so I know what they're able to do individually. And so I could see the potential of what they could do together. I know that the ONeil School is seeking to expand its international programs in addition to the ones that they already have. And it seemed to be a really good fit with us at Consulus because Consulus is a global innovation consultancy present in 20 countries, and so we have a reach on 5 continents, and so we both have been doing research on leadership and work in leadership. With Consulus, there's been research done on what it's going to require for leaders and employees to be able to do, and what it's going to be required of them to be able to navigate this difficult and challenging future that we are already in. And the executive leadership program that the ONeil School has offered has been top notch. And so I thought, wow, if we can combine these and somehow work together, this could be a powerful way to help meet the needs of leaders around the world today. So 3 years ago, Lawrence Chong came to Indiana, and he had a chance at that time to meet Sarah, and we also met with one of the other assistant deans of the IUPUI campus there, and really identified some very common interests in leadership and program approaches and how to be able to provide a very unique leadership experience that would be set apart from the other kinds of programs that are out there. It was going to be a classroom program, and then COVID-19 came along. So we ourselves had to pivot and to try to find really a different way to provide not only the knowledge of leadership that's required for now and in the future, but also how leaders can change, how they can move from maybe their past practices and experiences to what's going to be needed in the future to lead in these times of what some call VUCA, which is the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that we currently live in. So for the last several years, we've been working on this model of leadership called holistic leadership, and it's the hero model of it, the hero competencies, which really are based on many, many years of experience observing leaders who are effective and researching models that are really going to be needed in the times that we're in. And combining that with the work that Sarah has been doing on leadership in times of crisis is a way to merge these ideas and align them, because they really fit together very, very nicely and very well. So our goal is really to engage learners together in experiences to help embed these capabilities, not just to give information, but to really embed these skills and abilities that are going to be required. So we're really very excited about this opportunity to work together to develop this partnership further and to provide really very meaningful and effective leadership formation programs across the world.
Thanks, Jim, for explaining us the solid basis of this program. So, Sarah, now that the program has been offered once, how did it go? What did you think, and how did the participants respond?
Well, I actually was very surprised at the challenge of creating the webinar. The preparations for the initial Pivot with Courage was intense. And the Consulus and Indiana University Executive Education team spent hours together to get to know each other and to discuss why it was important to focus on global leadership, particularly now, and then to map out a direction for working together to benefit leaders around the world. I was actually surprised at the amount of time that it took our teams to develop this first webinar, but again, a portion of that time was spent forming as a team, which we know is extremely important for leaders to think about. Then we began discussing the strategic nature of the issues facing the world today and how this webinar and then follow-up series of future learning segments could positively impact those in leadership roles today. We actually had phenomenal attendance and participation from our audience. Attendees represented several continents and various industries, which just confirmed our belief that the need for direction is present in leaders in many areas of service and around the world. What we learned from participants is that the proposed hero model and the concept of holistic leadership resonated with those in attendance, and they saw great value in the idea that to pivot with courage, a leader must first focus on his or her own being and presence as a leader. And that while your behaviors are critically important, who you are as a person is what drives those behaviors. We had several participants engage in our question and answer period and ask us some challenging questions. And there was evidence that the pandemic and social unrest were weighing heavily on the hearts and minds of those in attendance. Fortunately, our own team has many years of leadership and leadership development experience. And so our experience enabled us to effectively respond to the questions that were posed by attendees. And for those questions that we weren't able to respond to because of the number of those that were sent to us, we did respond to all of those questions and sent those responses to all participants because we wanted to honor the concerns and the questions that those in attendance had for us. After the webinar, I actually had several personal notes sent to me that expressed appreciation for our work and for this opening discussion on holistic leadership. And it was apparent from those efforts that we were on target, that there was a need for this discussion around self-development and a transformation as leaders. And many people were looking for that, and we were able to provide that beginning conversation. So it was apparent from the participation, from the feedback that we got, and also our program evaluation, in which approximately 90% of those participating rated the webinar that they were satisfied or very satisfied with their experience that day. So to your question, how did it go? It was hard work, but we feel like it was very well received and responded to very positively by those in attendance.
Thanks, Sarah, for this inspiring answer. Back to you, Jim. What more do you think needs to be done to help leaders navigate increasing times of uncertainty And what resources can leaders look for to help them?
Well, yes, now is really the time that leaders need these resources, and we need to have leaders of conviction who can and will lead with courage and with innovative solutions. We've found that, in times of uncertainty like this and fear and crisis, it's crucial for leaders to have the skills to be able to communicate effectively and also to direct the hearts and minds of the people they're leading to a positive place, to be able to calmly steer them toward the common goals of the organization where they lead. So we believe that this calls for a holistic approach that considers not only the operations and the goals and objectives and results, but also the fact that the leader is leading people who have human needs, who deserve our respect, who are whole persons of body, mind, and spirit. And leaders need to be able to effectively lead people, not just processes and projects. Change is always difficult for people. We know that because even though we may be excited about a change, we also know that it's difficult. It's not easy to shift from a current state to a perceived or an envisioned future state. So that's why we've really been working on this model of holistic leadership, or holistic approach of body, mind, and spirit of both the people that are being led and the leader is what we believe is needed. So our HERO model, HERO, of holistic competencies describe the behaviors and the characteristics that these leaders are going to need. So how are these competencies built? Well, they come from experience, not just knowledge. So we have a word we've been using to describe this leadership program that is very experiential and very much from the inside out, that we call formation. So leadership formation and development, not only skill building, but also building the person. And so we use this definition of formation. It's becoming from the inside out an integrated person and leader with a deep understanding of his or her meaning and purpose in life and work through increased self-awareness, focused reflection, exploring one's values and vocation, and gaining a full appreciation of the gifts and talents of oneself and others. So why formation? Why this inside, deep inner work? It's because we believe that that's what leads leaders to authenticity, to be able to lead in an authentic way, to be true to who they are, and to be able to lead with that authenticity is what's going to be required to be a holistic leader. So as I said, this can only be done through practice. So to enable leaders who want to build these skills and competencies to practice, we're in the process of developing, we'll be offering a webinar series that will follow the introductory series of Pivot with Courage called Being the Holistic Leader. And that will consist of 8 2-hour webinars over a period of time in 2021. And it will really go beyond the Pivot with Courage introduction to deeply build and give the kinds of experiences that leaders need to be able to become holistic leaders for now and in the future. We also believe, though, that beyond courses and coursework and webinars, since this is such deep inner work, the leader needs to be very, very committed to their ongoing formation and development. And that can be done through other types of experiences like executive coaching, having a mentor. It could be observing and maybe even shadowing a leader who really has this kind of capability and competency and approach, and really learn from them. In other words, it requires an ongoing commitment. Yes, we can offer these resources, but it's an ongoing commitment that's going to help leaders to really build this competence and these abilities to be holistic. It's a long, lifelong process, lifelong learning, lifelong formation and development that's required.
Thanks, Jim. This sounds really encouraging and inviting to me. Finally, Sarah, can you tell us more about this leadership formation that you are offering and what leaders can expect to gain by attending this series?
Yes, I would be excited to talk about that, Stano. And As Jim has mentioned, he's described a little bit about the series, but the Leadership Formation series specifically will be based on the concept of holistic leadership and the hero model. And this model of leadership is comprised of the 4 portions that Jim mentioned, the individual qualities that we call heart and spirit, embracive thinking, relational dynamics, and finally, operational excellence. But we always focus on the person before the operational excellence because we know that heart and spirit, embracive thinking, and relational dynamics must precede one's ability to be operationally excellent. So each of these segments of the hero model are broken down into specific competencies, and engaging participants in the development of these competencies will be the focus of the leadership series. Participants should recognize, however, that this will be a unique process that is more about the formation of them as a person versus teaching leadership skills. And the competencies associated with being a leader are developed through a process of self-reflection, conversations, discussions, and discovery that will be a part of what all participants will experience. The formation process will occur over time. As Jim mentioned, it doesn't happen overnight. It is a process. And it will occur over time as participants engage with the series leaders and other participants and look at their own purpose, values, and become generally more self-aware. Great leaders must first know themselves before they can truly understand others. And what we know about those who effectively lead during times of crisis and change is that those leaders recognize that it is not just about surviving the crisis or change. It's really about knowing yourself and how that affects how you lead and those you are leading. And it's about becoming a leader that values others and leads in a way that honors the human spirit and doesn't just focus on the organization's bottom line. Great leaders not only take the time to learn about themselves, they also take the time to get to know the values and the visions of those they're leading. So participants who embrace and come to the Holistic Leadership Series should come prepared to do a deep dive into who they are and what motivates them as leaders. The series is designed to be a formation process, so participants will find themselves developing a greater self-awareness, and as a result, they should come away and be more in tune with the needs of those they lead. This experience will be a discovery process, and each individual will experience this in their own unique way, and it will depend on their own values and vision for their vocation. So those who participate will be courageous individuals willing to explore themselves in order to become the holistic leader that is needed in the current volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world in which we live today.
Thanks, Sarah. I believe this is really opening new horizons to many of us. Thank you both once again for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stanislav. And thank you, Sarah and Jim, for sharing your experience on the Pivot with Courage webinar. We really look forward to hearing more about the Leadership Formative series. With that, we have come to the end of Consulus Global Circle. We would like to thank everyone who has made today's program possible, including all our speakers, and a special thank you to the leaders who have shared their personal experience with us. Finally, we would like to thank you, all the viewers, for watching, and we hope you will join us for our next Global Circle on digital transformation in November. We look forward to bringing you more insights. Have a great weekend ahead.